a lot of us learn discipline from our parents, who learn discipline from their parents, who learn discipline from their parents, who learn discipline from their parents, who learn discipline from the slave master. And we have to be really thoughtful. And by the way, I probably went too far because my parent disciplined me. My mother's parent disciplined her. My mother's, parents disciplined her. And that's as far as it went. And then my grandmother's parents were disciplined by the slave master. So they passed down a lot of what they learned that wasn't necessarily constructive. There was one listener who put in the comments on Facebook, and I think someone else said it, that it only takes 1 or 2 hits. As a matter of fact, they were saying DCFS says that spanking on the butt, 1 or 2 strikes is okay. And what I've learned, even with my son, that the anticipation of a spanking is torture enough. Like, hey, man, you're going to be in trouble for this. It's like, no, Dad, please. Oh, Lord, Jesus, no. Right. He just, like, he becomes emotionally distraught at the idea of a spanking. So by the time we get to it, I don't have to beat the boy. It really 1 or 2 hits is more than enough. And the fact that it came down to that with someone that loves him, I think is enough for him to correct his behavior.
If you want to be about it, come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. It's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. Right now. Inspiration and perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live the dream. Your purpose now. Inspiration and perspective. Let's slay your goals.
I also think that this is one of the most important conversations that we can have. I mean, we could talk about relationships. It's interesting. I was looking at the insights from last week's show in contrast to the insights from the shows where we talked about relationship. And there's something about relationship and love and dating and marriage. The engagement was incredibly high. It dropped off last week when we talked about children. Now, it's one time. I don't want to make it mean anything, right? But I do find it. I do think it's reflective of where we are as a society, where we are more concerned about ourselves than our children. Like more concerned about our experience, like my experience of life, than the experience of my child. And by the way, like, self-love is really important. And I'm not in any way insinuating that we should lack the level of self-love that we have. But I do believe that to be a good parent, you have to be willing to make sacrifices. You have to be willing to love that child like you love yourself, because in many ways, that is you all over again. And one of the beauties of children is that they teach you lessons about yourself, and you get to see the things that you still struggle with, and the things that you struggle with manifest itself in your children. I see it in my son. I see it in my daughter. And they are, in many ways, an extension of me. And I do believe that the better we parent in the 2 decades that we're given to really influence them, and really I think it's really a decade and a half, because by the time they're 15, they ain't listening no more. So we got 15 years. I believe we have 15 years to properly train and influence our children in a way, and hopefully, hopefully at 15 they still hear some of it. To raise them into people who won't become burdens for the rest of our lives. I mean, who in many ways, if I invest properly in the first 15 years of my children's lives, then I will reap the benefits of that for the rest of my life. I think it's one or the other. Like, I will suffer as a result of my inability to properly raise my children, or my child or my children. If I don't do it right in the first 15 years, then I'll spend the next 30 in some way paying for that, whether I'm sitting in court, whether I'm crying, across the double pane glass while they're in jail, like whatever it is. Like, and by the way, a child can still go make their own decisions, but I do believe, and the Bible says it, that when you train up a child properly, then they will not stray. They will not stray. I believe that my life is a testimony to that in terms of how my parents raised me. They raised me in a very different world, but I do believe that my life is a testimony to that. And many of you all who are listening, I think you can go back and listen and think about the many lessons that your parents taught you, and your life is also a reflection of good parenting, not perfect parenting, but good parenting. So that's what we're going to dive into again today. Now, I'll share this before I go through the 20 lessons. One of the other things that I talked about last week was really defining what I mean by today's world. And what I'm pointing to is this world now where when I grew up, and when many of you all listening to me grew up, we were only navigating 3 realms. We were navigating, of course, the physical realm that we come into the world very aware of. And then we were also navigating that mental and psychological realm. As children, our minds developing. Lucky for us, in a world where there wasn't a whole lot of mental, psychological interference. We got to develop in many ways on our own outside of that. Whereas today, our children, they don't have that benefit because many of them are growing up with electronic devices that are creating some psychological and mental challenges. And so how do we raise our children in today's world, given the fact that there's an additional realm, this digital realm? And then, of course, the third realm that many of us grew up in was the spiritual realm, where, whether it was our grandparents or our parents, we got exposed to the spiritual realm through church, etc. And that became a part of how we moved through the world. So those are the things that I want to talk about. What I really want to talk about is how do we raise children in today's world with the addition of this new realm, this digital realm. Our children are in many ways navigating a completely new space, a space that we didn't have to navigate as children, and that is this digital realm. Lesson number 1 that we shared. Hold on, let me look at these notes, make sure I covered everything. Yes. So lesson number 1 that we covered last week was, teaching our children to treat others the way that we want to be treated, the platinum rule. The second lesson was that a child's work is to play. And I love that one. I'm looking for who it came from. But a child's work is to play. And that play needs to be physical, social, creative, and free. And there should be some digital play, right? And it's within the realm of the agreement that we have with my son is that he gets 30 minutes of digital time, so he can play, on the device for 30 minutes. Anything over and beyond that is a complete bonus, because 30 minutes is the cutoff time. And I actually got that from the creators of these digital devices, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, who both admitted that their children have limited access to the devices that they invented and created because they understood that it can create psychological issues. And they also know that they need to have access so they can learn how to use these devices. But anything more than 30 minutes it can be detrimental. So the other thing they said in here is we have to parent in a developmentally appropriate way in each of these types of play. If it's not safe to let my daughter walk to the park alone or go to a stranger's house, I shouldn't let her do the digital equivalent. I love that lesson. I need to look up who provided that one. But I love that lesson because I think with our children having digital devices, because they're in the house, I'm cooking, I can see them on the couch, they're doing things on a device. Do I know exactly what they are doing? And am I tracking it? I tell my son all the time, like, hey, ain't nothing you can do digitally that I don't know about. Like, unless you're on somebody else's devices somewhere else, like if you do it in this house, on any device in this house, I know exactly what you're doing. So just know while you're moving around, daddy's watching. Daddy's watching. If I don't see it today, I'm going to see it tomorrow. So I just know daddy's watching, right? So because I want to know what websites you went to, what videos you watched, what's going on. I believe that's part of our job as stewards of our children. Okay, number 3, teaching independence is really important. Go ahead and try, little friend. You may struggle, you may spill it, but you can do it. That came from Helen, who shared that in the comments last week on Facebook. Thanks for that lesson, Helen. Number 4, teaching children about nature and how to grow things is a natural way to teach patience. Love that one. A natural way to teach patience. That's something Pam and I, we talked about after the show. We're like, yeah, okay, we're going to make that happen. Make sure they're more so involved in how we garden and do things like that. Joyce last week said, if everybody else is doing it, then you probably shouldn't. Like actually teaching our children how to take the road less traveled early in life. As simple as that lesson is, I think that is one of the most important lessons that we can teach our children. It was a lesson that my mom in particular really spent time teaching me and my brother. And I do believe that it's one of the reasons I become who I become, where I really don't have to do what everybody else is doing. I learned that, as a matter of fact, I believe I learned that lesson in 6th grade. Had a situation where, I'll tell the story real quick. I had a favorite pair of jeans, and I love these jeans so much, I wanted to wear them every day. And my mother really didn't care. And back then, things were a little different. I'm 48 years old, so 6th grade, that's 40 plus years ago. And back then, it wasn't a thing for a child to wear the same pair of jeans maybe 2 times in a row, 3 times in a row. As long as you didn't get grass stains on them or anything like that, them jeans could get rotated. And for those of you on Facebook who grew up in that era, like, don't leave me out here, give me some hearts or something if if that, you're like, yeah, Linnell, that was, that's fairly normal. That was fairly normal. Now, also for those of us who grew up, we didn't have that kind of funding. Once again, very, very normal. Anyway, I go to school one day. The kids are like, man, you had those jeans on yesterday. Like, yeah, okay, they my favorite jeans. They start laughing at me. I come home. I don't want to wear these jeans no more, mama. These are your favorite jeans. Why you don't want to wear your favorite jeans? Kids at school were laughing at me. Well, what does it matter if you like the jeans? You going to let them dictate what you like because they're laughing? Like, what you like is what you like. You tell them I like these jeans. Well, I don't want to wear them. She's like, no, you putting them back on tomorrow. Like, what? I was distraught, upset. You putting them back on. Those are your favorite jeans. You don't let someone else tell you what you like. You like what you like. And she made me go and wear those jeans the next day. Get to school in the jeans, the kids, oh, you got them same jeans on again? Yo, Because now it's like either I'm a crack under the pressure or I'm a own it. Yo, I like these jeans. I decided to put these jeans on. I wear these jeans because these are my favorite jeans. Laugh and stop. And I was like, yo, oh, wow. Like, if you believe in something, like, it's not funny. Like, if it don't bother me, it ain't funny no more. And it's like, it clicked for me. Like, if I'm my own person, it doesn't really matter what other people think. More often than not, you will be accepted when people realize that that's what you believe. If I came in here and I wore burnt orange every day, and they're like, why does he wear that burnt orange? That's horrible. And I'm like, I love it. I love it. Oh, that's him. And before you know it, people let you go. They let you be. Like, why that brother got that color on? Man, that's what he do. That's what he do. You become your own individual. And in today's world, I think that is an incredibly, incredibly important lesson. Incredibly important lesson. Because I do believe that we're beginning to edge towards a world where everybody is doing the exact same thing. And even for some of us as adults, we don't feel right if we can't do or move the way everybody else is moving. And I believe true success comes from individuality and allowing the Creator to use us in alignment with our purpose in the way that he intends to, and nothing else. All right, that was a great lesson. Thanks for that one, Joyce. Okay, here's another one. Number 6, pay attention to children. Take them to a museum and improve their value system. Children should be taught history. And what I caught from that is that history improves a child's value system. And I also believe that history teaches us phenomenal lessons. It teaches us that decisions that are made result in stories that are told. And that's what I took from, as a child, I really loved history. And it reminded me like, man, okay, you don't want to be on the wrong side of history. You don't want to be this guy, right? You don't want your name to be synonymous with evil and bad things. And so it also influenced how I behaved. David B. off of Facebook said, number 7, get the kids out the house. They should play so hard their lungs hurt. Man, if that's not needed today, especially when 50% of children are obese. Like, let's sit with that. 50% of children. Double check that stat real quick for me. We can run it on ChatGPT because I want to reference, because I'm going off of memory. But if I'm not mistaken, 50% of children today in the United States of America can be considered obese. And I think it's at a certain age. But just check real quick. It should come up. But whose fault is that? Whose fault is it that children are obese? And then there's another lesson here. I should have put them very close to one another. But I think it came from Helen as well, Helen Youngberg, where she said that, let me see if I can find the lesson. Where did we put that lesson? But I included it in the lesson that children should see food as fuel. So how they relate to food should be fuel for their well-being, I believe is how she put it. We'll get to the lesson here in a moment. I'll link it back.
So 19.7% between 2017 and 2020, but it's increased since the pandemic from 19% to 22%.
22% of children are obese. So I was a bit.
Yeah.
As of what year was that research?
This was, let's see.
That means 1 in 5.
Well, that was this year.
This year?
2024.
As of 2024, 22% of children are obese. So 1 in 5 children are obese. They give an age?
Let's see. Researchers in different age groups. So 2 to 5 years, 12.7%, 6 to 11, 20, and then 12 to 19, 22%.
Say it again louder. Your mic's not on, so say it louder so we can hear you.
2 to 5 years old, 12.7%.
So 2 to 5 years old, 12.7% of 2 to 5 year olds are obese. That's insane.
Yeah, it is.
So
Yeah.
1 in 10 of children between the ages of 2 and 5 are obese.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's the next one?
Between 6 and 11 years old, 20.7%.
So between 6 and 11, 20.7% of the children are obese. So 1 in 5 between 6 and 11 are obese. Okay. And then
The last one is 12 years old to 19 years old is 22.2.
so 22.2, 12 to 19. So 1 in 5. Now, and think about this. As parents, if we allow this, like what we are doing to the psyche of the child, not just to the body, but also to the mind, because you can't tell me that a child who is one of the 5 in their school, in the places that they move around and barely can play, if you're obese, right, that they don't have deep self-esteem issues. You can't, and children are cruel. But children often also tell the truth. So I think it's a combination of truth-telling and cruelness, where children will be like, you're fat. And I don't believe that, especially between that 6, you said 6 and 11 age frame,
Yep.
A lot of times these children are just like expressing what they see. My son did it with me. We were at the restaurant one day. I take him to the bathroom. We both use the bathroom. We're washing our hands. An obese man comes in. My son turns. He does a 360 as a man walks by. He's like, Daddy, you see how fat that man is? Right in front of him. Right? Like no filter. You see how fat he is? Like he was like blown away by like, man, this is a big guy. And I said, I do. Right? Because I ain't going to play him. Like, he not fat. The guy looked at me. I just kind of shrugged like, you a big guy, right? You're a big guy. And I kind of shrugged it off. I walked out and I said, hey, you got to keep people's feelings in mind. He said, but he's fat. I'm like, facts. And we just walked back to the dinner table. But he didn't do it in a malicious way. It was just like, I see it. I'm going to call it out. So our children playing outside, it's huge. And just because we have these devices doesn't mean that our children should not get outside time. And I can remember on a Saturday, it was like everything I did, get my chores done so I can get outside. And it's just not that way. You don't see children playing in the streets like that anymore. So get the kids out the house. Number 8, teach children the difference between right and wrong. That's straightforward. I do think they need to be taught that. Number 9, give children love. By the way, this should be at the top because between the ages of 1 and 3, research says, by the way, I know where I got the 50% from. Look up adults. I believe in the United States of America, 50% of adults are obese. That's where I got that number from. I'm like, where did I get that number? But look that up for me. So 1 and 2 adults are obese, but let's check that one to be sure. But give children love and teach them how to love. Also teach them the spiritual nature of love and teach children how to love the Creator. Such an important lesson. Such an important lesson. If we can get that into our children at a young age, it will craft how they move in the world, how they think about the world, their ability to connect to the Creator, their ability to even pray. And so that's really, really important. Number 10, children should know how to actively listen and follow simple instructions. So important. You got something yet?
Yeah, it's 40%.
40% of adults?
This year, yo.
So as of 2024, 40% of adults can be considered obese.
Yeah.
So that means right now, my listening audience, and by the way, I believe this is one of the reasons so many children are obese. Because if as parents, we are not taking care of ourselves, our children model us. And by the way, if I have food in my house that causes obesity and I'm obese, then I am likely, and here's the thing, a child's metabolism is very high. So you can still have children who aren't obese, but their health is they can't be healthy, which means that even if the child's not obese, it's likely they're sickly, they're not getting the nutrition and vitamins and things that they need. So that's impacting not only their growth, but it's also impacting their ability to learn. And so we just got to do better. And what I was going to say, and you guys know I love you. So let me say that first. I do love you. And I did the whole series on how we're poisoning ourselves and how we need to take care of ourselves. 40% of Americans in the United States of America are obese. That's pretty much 1 out of 2. We have normalized obesity to the point where if you are not excessively overweight, it's overlooked now. It's kind of like you get a pass. If you're not excessively overweight, you get a pass. Can you look up the definition of obesity for me? Like the show's not about this, but I got mad love for y'all. And I really want us to get, to get better. I got it here. Oh, you got it. So obesity it's a chronic disease, number one, right? So they call obesity a chronic disease. So if you are obese, then this is considered a disease, number one. It occurs when a person has too much body fat, which is considered abnormal or excessive and poses health risk. And it's different from being overweight, which is when someone weighs too much, but their weight could be from muscle, bone, fat, or water. All right. The body mass index is a number calculated from a person's weight and their height, used to determine if they are overweight or obese. You're underweight if your BMI is below 25. You're overweight if your BMI, body mass index, is between 25 and 29, which means that if you are 25 pounds over, that means you're overweight. If BMI is 30 or higher, that is considered obesity. So if I'm 30 pounds heavier than I should be, right, that is considered obesity. Number 11, children should know the value of money. Teach children how to operate within a budget. So important. And my son is just now at 7 starting to understand that, $100 is a lot of money. For a minute, I think he felt like y'all got it. I see $100 bills. I see y'all got it. No big deal. Hey, Dad, this toy is $400. When can I get it? What? Do you understand how much $400 is? What makes you think you're going to get a $400 toy? Dad, I want an iPad for Christmas. Do you know how much an iPad is? Y'all got it. Hey, man, an iPad is $800 to $1,000. He's like, what? Yeah. What makes you think you're going to get a $1,000 device for Christmas? Like at 7 years old. Let's not even talk about what the iPad does that I'm not enrolled in. You get where I'm going? But just the fact that it's $1,000, what makes you think I'm going to hand you a $1,000 device? Like, what have you done to deserve a $1,000 device in this household? It's like, nah. Not happening. Dad, Dad, why? Nah, man, look. This goes right into the next lesson, number 12. Children should be doing chores. They should be taught to do chores and know how to earn what they want. You can get a job, cutting grass, shoveling snow, raking leaves. Like, this is how we grew up. I had a $50 budget in high school for shoes. So if I wanted some Jordans, I had to subsidize that $50 budget, which means I had to go out and actually earn money that I could add to what my parents were putting on my school shoes. Mom would be like, you got $50. Go make a choice. You know what, Mom? I'd rather hold off. I got 40 now. I need 10 more so I can get a pair of Jordans. Okay, that's fine with me. Bring your $50 to the table and you can get whatever shoe you want. That's $100. Well, you're only getting 50 from me. That's how it worked. And so it taught me how to go out and earn money. Now, here's the thing. The science actually says that when children do chores, they actually develop higher levels of self-esteem. That's what the psychological science says. So if your children aren't doing chores, then you are actually doing them a disservice. You are doing them a disservice in terms of how they will see themselves in the world. Think about that. Now, y'all know, once I saw that science, you already know what happened in my house. Legend, come here and clean out the dishwasher. Dad, I can't reach the cabinets. You know, it's interesting, but when it's time for you to get something you want, you figure it out. So figure out how to put it in the cabinet, right? And don't break a thing, right? Like, let's get it going, right? So, man, when I tell you, like, it's like, okay, you got chores. Saturday morning, clean your room. Last night, my daughter's 2 years old. I'm like, Rain, you and Daddy are going to clean the family room of all your toys. She had toys spread out all over the family room. Before you go to bed, you're going to put your toys, and then she didn't want to. So she did it crying because she was trying to run to her mama. Every time she ran, I catch her by the chest. I push her back in the family room. No. You can't go see mama until you put your toys up. Daddy, mama, you know, she crying. Turn around and get your toys. Okay, Daddy. Okay. Rain don't want to pick up her toys. She talks in the first person, you know, the third person, whatever, right? She talks in the third person. I'm like, hey, look, Rain got to do what Daddy said, okay? Go pick up your toys. Why am I doing that? Y'all know I love my daughter. I don't want to see her cry because I don't want my daughter to have self-esteem issues. So she going to be doing chores. It's that simple. Okay. Number 13, children should still learn how to read a map. I love that one. I think it came from David B. How to read a map. He talks about the different terrains. A child should be able to see the different terrains on a map. And here's the thing. Like, if we're teaching our children young, then it's something they can take with them. What if this technology stops working? They'll have the edge. They'll be like, they can open up that McNally map and make it happen. And so I love that one. Number 14, today's child should assume that everything they do will be public knowledge when they're an adult. Bold that one. Underscore that one, because I firmly believe that in today's world, that our children will have a digital past unlike anything that we've experienced. Unlike anything. Think about this. When you went to high school, nobody knew who was showing up in that classroom, whether they had your name or not. And if you missed the first day, they had to wait to see what you looked like the next day. Now, if they see your name on the roster, oh, Legend Harris, who is that? They can look him up. They can see how he's living. They can see how he dresses before he even shows up. They can see what he did, what sports he played, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, who he is, maybe even who he dated, what he's done. Like, they know everything about you when you show up. And so I do believe we need to teach our children that this digital footprint that you're creating is going to be part of how people perceive you in the world moving forward, not just now, but for the rest of your life. For the rest of your life. This summer I was doing interviews, and there were people who didn't get an interview. And I got a note from one young lady who said, you know, can you help me understand with the qualifications that I have why I did not receive an interview with your company? And I just wrote her back, take an objective look at your social media profiles as if you were the leader of a company. I didn't receive anything back. Because I think what she did was she looked at him and was like, if you were the CEO of a company looking to hire somebody, would you hire you? If you saw your social media profile? She went back. I heard nothing back from her. I think she went and looked and she was like, like, yeah. That's why you didn't get a phone call for an interview, young lady. Okay? Too much. Way too much. Okay. Number 15, read books and teach your children to read. Notice it starts with read books. Read books. One of the things that I'm going to actively work on going into 2025, because it's one of those things. My son right now, he's like, I don't really like books, Daddy. I'm like, man, what's going on with you? Then I realize I read more so in private than I do with my children around. And by the way, I feel like I have a good excuse for that. Because they don't, like, if I'm reading, they don't, Daddy, what, they don't care. You know what I mean? Like, Daddy, my daughter definitely doesn't care. Just walks up, she'll knock the book down. What are you doing? Pay attention to me. But after seeing this from one of the listeners, it hit me that if my children don't see me read, then they can't mimic that. And a lot of my reading happens in my office or, away from the family so I can think about what I'm reading, meditate on it. And I'm like, man, I have to do a better job of pulling a book out and reading the books that I'm reading in front of my children. And then maybe saying, hey, I'm reading, be quiet. Where they can actually see, like, this matters to Dad. Because they pattern themselves after us. If you're not reading books, it's more than likely your children aren't going to enjoy reading books. It is what it is. Here's another one from Helen. By the way, Helen killed it last week. I mean, I don't know if she's listening today, but Helen, thank you so much for the insight. She was dropping gems. But she said, children should be explicit. This is number 17. No, this is number 16. I'm sorry. So number 16 and 17 belong to Helen. Children should have the ability to enjoy solitude and find things to do by themselves. In parentheses, she says, without a screen. I love that. Children should have the ability. If your child can't play alone without a screen, you are setting them up for anxiety and depression as an adult. I'm telling you. I am telling you. They're going to spend, as an adult, when they're outside that house, they're going to have to know how to spend time with themselves. Might as well teach them now as children. Even if there are multiple children in the house. Go to your room. You go to that corner, you go to that corner. Read a book. Play by yourself. Leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? Like, nothing wrong with that at all. That is not child abuse. It is not child neglect. You're actually teaching the child how to interact with themselves. I love that one. Love that one. Here's the other one that Helen shared. Children should be explicitly taught executive functioning, backward planning, gathering materials, and while you monitor their progress. Oh, monitoring their own progress. I'm sorry. The ability to monitor their own progress. So actually set, like, where am I achieving the goal? That came from Helen as well. Phenomenal. Karen Gross shared, children should be taught social skills. Real simple, powerful lesson. Real simple. It links in to the ability to be alone, too. I believe that a person's ability to be alone and their ability to socialize, like, I should be able to be by myself and be okay. And then you should be able to insert me into a group and I should still be okay. My heart rate shouldn't increase when I'm alone. My heart rate shouldn't increase when I'm in a social circumstance. I ain't talking about speaking from a stage. I'm talking about a regular social circumstance. I should be normal and okay. Anything else is considered weird. Are you raising a weird child? I mean, like, think about it. Anything else? So then they go to high school, they get bullied. You're like, these children are awful. Maybe you're an awful parent. Let me say it again. I don't want you, let me say it again to make sure you understood what I just said, because somebody right now is clutching their pearls or grabbing their heart. You will look at these children. These children are awful. They're bullying my child. No, maybe you're an awful parent because you did not appropriately prepare your child for social situations. Because if your child is weird, children do what children do. Children gonna call them out. You're weird. You're weird. Get away from me because you don't fit in socially. Is that the child's fault? And is it the child who calls it out's fault? Or is it the parent's fault? And I'm not talking about a developmentally challenged child. I'm talking about a normal child who does not have social engaging opportunities because you're a selfish parent. Okay, let's keep going. 18. Children should be taught. Okay, we got that one. 19. 19. Children should understand that there is a difference between academic achievement and critical thinking. Woo! I know some smart, stupid people. I know some smart, stupid people. Let me give you an example of something I just ran across. I just ran across a person who has a law degree who doesn't have critical thinking skills. I'm not talking about Fenton. Y'all know better. Like, right? I ran across an attorney who does not have critical thinking skills. I was like, what's happening? What's happening? I'm going to tell you what happened. They went through the schooling system where they learned how to memorize material and pass tests. But when it comes to the ability to critically think and solve problems, they don't have it. So do you think this is a successful attorney? Or no? Because you need critical thinking skills to be a successful attorney. You need both. And critical thinking skills have to be taught. Y'all know the cliche, common sense ain't common. To me, common sense is just critical thinking. I can actually deduct things. I could say, so it must be cold outside because Ide's glasses have fog in them. Deductive reasoning. Not, hey man, what happened to your glasses? Right? Now, I got all these degrees and I can't reason what's going on here. That's what I'm talking. That's an example of what I'm talking about. Okay. Number 20. This came from Tony Briscoe. A child should be taught biblical principles in a Christian home and be taught these principles from a non-European view of Yahshua. I like that one. So let me tell y'all something. I agree with that so much, Tony, that when my children have been given books that have a European approach to Christianity, I give them away. That goes to Goodwill. That's not for you. Because the Yahshua I need you to see should reflect you. And that's a whole nother show. That's a whole nother show. But because I'm dealing with the psychology of my children's minds, I'm guarding their minds from this white supremacist ideology that everything that is good looks a certain way. It's like, no, you are good and you look like this. And so did Yahshua. So did Yahshua. I'm so with that. I love that one, Tony. Thanks for sharing it. Okay. And then 21 was food is your fuel for well-being. Eat well. That came from Helen. So those are the 21 lessons I've received so far. What else y'all got for me? Can we get to 30? Can we get to 30 unique lessons for children? That would be absolutely amazing.
So my grandmother listens to your show faithfully and sends all of her grandchildren a reminder every Sunday morning that you're on and what you're talking about for the day.
Oh, wow.
Shout out to her. She works for Vogue as a seamstress, tailor, sewer. And one of the lessons that she taught to us was measure twice, cut once.
Good one.
That is a line that has stuck with me and proved pretty productive throughout life.
Yeah.
To consider the outcome, think through the next steps before you make the next step, walking things out to their logical conclusion before you make a move.
I love that.
And another way, now into adulthood, I became a carpenter, and it's the same thing. You measure twice, cut once, because once it's cut, you can't go back. And it's just a good lesson.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that one. That's really, really good. Really, really good. Thanks for the phone call this morning. And thanks for listening. And tell your grandmother I appreciate her. I really do.
Christine Rice, you're awesome.
There we go. Thank you so much. That's good stuff.
But the first language to a child is your facial expression. You get in their face and you make sure that they hear you and that they see you, and that you are able to show them, I'm not pleased with that behavior. You know, it's the facial expressions that the child learns to read first. And I'm very concerned about these children that saw the world through masses, the mask that was on their adult face. Everybody had a mask on. And these little children were not able to read faces, any kind of expression. So I think that's going to be a problem in the future. But in conclusion, if a child, a little baby, he goes over there, crawls over there, and pulls out all of their little toys, you crawl him back over there and put those toys back. We miss the mark when we do not teach them to take responsibility. It's the one thing we don't teach our children for the most part. And if they'll tell them you're sorry, they might not want to. So I learned from babies in the class, toddlers in the classroom teaching me that you say, well, tell them you're sorry. No, well, go over there and sit down and think about it.
Yeah, no doubt.
I've raised a socially awkward child.
Okay.
You know, it's been costly. And I say the only reason why I think it worked out to some degree because we had to do a lot to entertain a single child. You know, you got a single kid, it's tough. But we threw him through private school all the way to high school, and you know he's been all over California, Florida, been overseas trying to expose him to stuff. But he's still socially awkward, and now he's at the University of Mississippi, and I don't know what's gonna happen. No chores, no real responsibility. I say I go to bed every night and I pray. Yeah. Because I don't know how this is going to end up.
Al, why do you think that is? Like in terms of, is it a boy or girl?
Boy.
Why do you think your son? What do you believe? You and your wife? Did you raise your son alone, or is with your wife?
Mother and father. You know what I'm saying? The whole deal. The whole community circling around him. You know. But I couldn't get no chores out of him. But awesome child. But I have been spooked sending this kid all the way to another state with this training behind him. But I'm hoping that it stand up.
Let me ask you a question, Al. When you say you couldn't get your son to do chores, like, tell me more. Help me understand that.
Well, you know, he was raised. This is the kind of awkward situation. He was raised with a grandmother in the home. And so she did everything. Nobody could stop these people from, he didn't have to do anything. His mama is the money machine. So she made sure that this boy did, and I fought it the whole way. But at the end, what can I do?
Yeah, man, my heart goes out to you, brother. My heart goes out to you, and prayers up for your son away at school in Mississippi, and maybe, just maybe, he'll begin learning some of these lessons out on his own that he didn't get earlier.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. That's tough. That's tough. That's tough. I can feel the pain. It's man, sisters, listen to these fathers when they're trying to tell you how to raise these boys. You know, back up and let them do their work. Please. Please, please, please let these men do their work on their boys. Like, back up. I'm so serious. And looked like he was double teamed, so he just didn't, he couldn't. Man, back up. And to the fathers, this is also where we have to draw a line and sometimes insert ourselves with whatever force you can. Like, yo, this is how it's going to go down. And if it creates confrontation in a home, I'm okay with that. Confrontation is a good thing in a marriage. It's a good thing in a household because it brings things to an edge, and that's sometimes where it needs to be. So I think it's a two-way street. Sisters, back up and listen to the fathers when they're trying to father their sons. And brothers, insert yourself, even if it creates confrontation. I'm not talking about physical confrontation or anything like that. You know what I'm talking about. Like respectful confrontation. But insert yourself. Draw a line for the well-being of your son.
My parents did not spare the rod with my siblings. So they did a darn good job, and I, in turn, had to use the same tactics with my daughter. And so I feel like the parents that did not spare the rod, I think their children turned out great. But in one instance, I have heard where these parents who were a little rough on these people, on their children, they decided not to train their children like they were trained, so their children turned out to be thugs.
Okay.
Have you heard that?
I've heard it go both ways. Annette, thanks for the phone call this morning. I've heard it go both ways, where a child or parents can do a fairly kind of cannot necessarily discipline the child, and the child turns out fine. And then they don't discipline the child, and the child turns out horrible. I think it comes down to the level of time and love that you provide a child. And, I wanted to share my perspective on this. We don't have 4 minutes, probably is not enough to do it, but here's what I will say. I think in today's world that when it comes to disciplining children, it's a combination of both being a gentle parent, a thoughtful parent, a parent that's willing to listen, but also a parent that's willing to discipline. And that's the approach that my wife and I have taken. Both my wife and I grew up in homes where we were spanked. Like, no question. And we both questioned some of the spankings we got. And then there's some spankings we got where there's no question. Okay. It's like, I deserve that beating. I had it coming, and I should have known. And then there's other ones I'm like, I don't know. I can think of a spanking I got from my father where I was trying to explain that, Dad, I didn't do what you said I did. He wasn't listening to me, and he beat me good. And it was like, it hurt me. Like, not just physically, like it hurt my feelings that I couldn't express myself to my father, nor did he believe me, And that's something I remember for a long time, and something I had to work through in therapy, believe it or not. And it was like, it's probably only one spanking that was kind of outside the scope of what I felt like I deserved, that it scarred me in some ways. And then the rest of the spankings that I knew I deserved didn't scar me that way. It was like I knew I deserved that spanking. And so I do think as parents, it's a delicate balance. Now, here's what I will say. A lot of us learn discipline from our parents, who learn discipline from their parents, who learn discipline from their parents, who learn discipline from their parents, who learn discipline from the slave master. And we have to be really thoughtful. And by the way, I probably went too far because my parent disciplined me. My mother's parent disciplined her. My mother's, parents disciplined her. And that's as far as it went. And then my grandmother's parents were disciplined by the slave master. So they passed down a lot of what they learned that wasn't necessarily constructive. There was one listener who put in the comments on Facebook, and I think someone else said it, that it only takes 1 or 2 hits. As a matter of fact, they were saying DCFS says that spanking on the butt, 1 or 2 strikes is okay. And what I've learned, even with my son, that the anticipation of a spanking is torture enough. Like, hey, man, you're going to be in trouble for this. It's like, no, Dad, please. Oh, Lord, Jesus, no. Right? He just, like he becomes emotionally distraught at the idea of a spanking. So by the time we get to it, I don't have to beat the boy. It really, 1 or 2 hits is more than enough. And the fact that it came down to that with someone that loves him, I think is enough for him to correct his behavior. And so I do think for us, it becomes one of those things of, am I disciplining the child because this is what's necessary, or am I disciplining the child because he's mad? Let me give you one more example in the 60 seconds I have. There was a situation where my son disrespected me, and I was so furious I didn't do anything. And my wife was like, I can't believe he didn't get in trouble. And I told her, and I'll end the show with this, that I was not in the right mindset to discipline him. It wasn't him getting away with it. It was me managing myself as a father and as a parent, because I didn't want to do something that was irreversible. I wanted to kill the little boy at the time. You're like, and when I say that, y'all get what I mean, right? You know, and because of that, because of what I felt, I said, nope, I'm not doing nothing. And then later I came back and had a very good conversation with him, and I told him why he didn't get spanked. I said, because I would have towed you up in a way that wouldn't have been okay. Don't think you got away with it. Just know that the only reason you didn't get it is because I love you, and the behavior still was not okay. And if it happens again, you will get a controlled spanking. Like, I won't be so angry. It'll be controlled. Thank you for watching Inspirational Perspective. If you love this show and you want to see more content like this, you can go right here. And if you like this subject and you want to see much more content that we have available for you, just click the button here. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to watch the show live, 7 a.m. every Sunday morning on WBON Radio, or you can catch it right here on YouTube or Facebook.com/Coach Linnell Harris. Be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so we can get more content just like this to you.